I think the older I get, the more interested I am in mathematics, and not just like raw mathematics, but applying it to the world. Now, I think you have to be very careful. Science is taught in a way that makes you think that it's all just formulas and mathematics, but I don't think that science should be taught that way at all until someone is like firmly grasps the concepts. The same way with like music, right? If you're trying to teach a child to play music, you let them have fun. You let them, bash the keys, touch the strings, and eventually they start to figure out something. They hear, and when they're a bit older, they're able to look at or listen to a song and think like, that's nice, I want to play that, and kind of start to do that, right? But classically, musicians are taught with sheet music, and they are taught with sheet music throughout the whole time. Now, I don't think it's wrong to use sheet music. Sheet music in this case is the theory, it's the math, right? It's the all that kind of written part of music, and it's fine. You can have scales written down in sheet music, and you can play them, and you can have songs and exercises and such. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a communication. It's a language, so to speak. You're materializing thoughts into like these sheets of paper, right? To then replicate and play with your fingers on a piano. But that's not music. Music isn't sheet music. Sheet music is the language, right? It's not the actual sounds, and it's not the actual feeling and such. If you can understand that you don't want to get lost into formulas and mathematics, then you can look at formulas and mathematics and really appreciate them. Now, in programming a computer, there's two major parts, which is your data, which is like if you're going to break things into data. Imagine a clothing company. The data is the name of the clothing company. It's all the clothes they have, all the categories, all the colors, all the sizes, all the things that you can write down as a language. And then the formula, I guess you would say, which would be the algorithm, the logic, right, is uh, organizing everything into categories and then displaying certain categories when someone clicks a search button and types something in, right? It's the active part to the passive part, which is data. Math and like formulas is the same, right? You have a formula which is talking about like, I don't know, speed, right? The active part is like the mathematics and the formula within it, and the speed is the data. It's like the passive, the feminine part of this thing. Now, a lot of the time, these formulas are very almost like self-circular to an extent. It's like if you look at voltage, amperage, and resistance, they can all be changed. Right, so with Ohm's law, we have voltage is inductance, or which is called amperage, times resistance, right? Or if you want to flip it around, if you understand your math, is amperage equals voltage over resistance, or resistance equals voltage over amperage. So you can see these three things can all be manipulated in different ways and like done in reverse, so to speak. So you can always do mathematics in reverse. And of course, because there are three components to this, we can have three different equations for voltage, amperage, and resistance on how to get them. And it's very fascinating, right? It's almost very naturalistic in a way. Mathematics is always one of those things that is far removed from nature, it feels like, but it actually isn't. It's just a little bit complicated and a little bit difficult to understand, I guess. But once you do, you'll see how it is actually a natural thing. Now, you can essentially take anything and you can use it as data and then create the function or the formula to then understand things. And I've always thought of maths as like a a multiplier. You have to firstly understand the things that exist, right? That's the thing. You should always wonder, are you fully understanding everything? Do you know all of the variables for the thing you're trying to work out? Because if not, then you're not going to get accurate predictions and all that stuff, right? And then do you understand how the variables interact with them, which is the formula using your mathematics, right? So we figured out all of these different ways, and science, of course, is very, at least in the modern age, is very kind of quantized and precise and measured and such. Realistically, science is actually it's like cooking art. It's dirty and it's full of mistakes and full of mess ups, and it's I guess we've made it more clean and measured and such in the modern age, but real scientific practice is a lot more, it's a little bit more rough, right? It's a bit, I guess medicine can be like that as well. But we've kind of sterilized everything, I guess, in the modern age. Now, as I said, you need to understand the variables that you're working with, the things that you are trying to put into formulas and such, and that requires experience. As I said, with music, you should just play music. You should just hammer away on a keyboard, and eventually, once you get bored enough, you think, well, maybe I want to read some sheet music. I want to learn all these things, and then you start to understand each of these sounds or keys has a word for it. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then the sharps, right, and the flats, and you start to learn this theory of music and apply it to that, right? And now computers are used to simulate these kinds of things, right? Assumingly, people who are very intelligent and companies that are very big have vast sets of data which they could use to simulate anything. They could simulate you, they could simulate a country, a company. Essentially, it's like a crystal ball where they could look into the future and simulate and virtualize reality itself. I imagine that's what like Google and these other companies are probably doing, because at the end of the day, if you can quantize everyone and everything into data and at least have it be 95 to 99% accurate, and then you fully have a raw understanding of how reality works. You understand like cyclically there is time and seasons and like all this kind of stuff, right? Then you can start to simulate things. And of course, I do wonder, this requires deep levels of being realistic, essentially, which I would imagine. I don't know. Do these big tech companies struggle with that because they're more like left leaning, which is more leftism is more traditionally delusional. It's more looking at what you want instead of what is, which is, I think that the kind of joke is that like these big companies have these data sets, and probably these great big algorithms and computers, but they lack the ability to see reality, so they can't accurately probably predict things as well as they should or could, because maybe they don't want to program that, or maybe they actually don't believe in all this junk they peddle, and they can accurately predict things. I think that's probably more of a realistic thing, to be completely honest. Yeah, it's just that they kind of have a front of, so that kind of stuff. But anyway, if you look up the formula for density and volume, what is it? Density, volume, and is it weight? I think all those are related the same way we did the amperage. Density, mass, and volume. Mass, I guess, what's that, like weight? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So density equals mass over volume. Now, volume is like size, right? So the density of something is just a measurement of how heavy it is over, which I guess is like divided by, right? How large it is. So things that are really big and really light are not very dense. Something like lead, which is, a small piece of lead is pretty heavy. It's very dense, and then you can reverse these. So you can find you can think like mass is equal to, like, the weight of something is equal to its density, over its, I guess, I don't know, times its volume, or somehow, I don't know, I would have to figure that out. Here we go. Volume is equal to mass over density. So that's another interesting. Yeah, there we go. And it doesn't show the one for mass. I have to figure that out. So there's all these types of formulas. These equations are almost like, I don't know if I want to say the word magical. I don't know. They're very interesting, right? Another one is radius of a circle, and the intersection line. I forgot what they call that one. The line in the middle of a circle. There's all these kinds of math equations for geometry, right? So, and this is stuff that I guess engineers use, right? People who need to absolutely make things perfect. And as I said, you always have to be careful because maybe you don't have the right variables. And if you work with them and be open about it, you will realize, like, math isn't everything, but you can, the better you get at it. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe this gives you some ideas about things. Really, it's just like, if you try to think about this stuff, I feel like we could, like, figure out everything and just put it into a formula and data, and like, I guess that's what we've done. I guess that's what humans have done, right? So it's like, that's a higher level thing. Once you get to a higher level in something, in a field, you start to think about mathematics. And as I said, don't start with formulas in mathematics unless you really want to and you like that or it's interesting. Otherwise, I thought it was kind of boring and difficult, and I couldn't really understand when I was younger. But yeah, I think it's like almost like a cheat code to reality. Like, this is like the closest thing to, like, a cheat code is a mathematical form, like a formula. And again, not just like raw maths. I'm talking about like actual things. And once you can start applying formulas to everything and anything, I know, socialization, money, business, whatever, right? Like, apply that, and you can just like break reality, or not technically not break reality, but understand it in like a numerical way to then accelerate it and times it, right? So I was at the supermarket, and anytime I walk past the pet food aisle, I'm always doing the math in my head, because pet food's like way cheaper, right? Even if you buy the look, I'm not gonna eat pet food, I swear. I'm not gonna do it. I'm just saying, all right? Look, even the wet food, right? Which is what you'd get, right? It's so much cheaper. It's like just slabs of, I don't know, processed meat and vegetables and all this kind of stuff. And it says on it, not for human consumption. And they also put like amino acids, and man, they're like, dogs are getting jacked off this food with all the supplements, like bodybuilder food, like legit. Anyway, if you look at the snacks there's all kinds of like dog snacks, and they take certain offcuts of animals that get like mass produced, and then they bag them up, and then the animals seem to like them, right? It's very interesting. This is kind of the main point. Like, pig's ears. Why are pig's ears popular with dogs? Why do they like pig's ears? Who figured that out, right? Because the pig is the animal, it's like the water animal, right? In Chinese medicine, it's the kidneys of the pig are very strong and very prominent. So the pig's bones are like indestructible little, sticks, or not little, but they're big sticks that are like indestructible. You got to think like that. An animal puts a lot of nutrients into whatever thing that it is, whatever like element that it has, right? The cow, its throat is very like strong part of the cow. The muscles is very strong, right? Like the milk, there's a lot of nutrients in the milk of a cow. So the cow puts like nutrients in these certain parts. The pig, because it's a water animal, right? It puts its nutrients in the kidney, or the kidneys are very strong. I would imagine the bladder. What do they make footballs out of? Pig bladder. They call it a pig skin, right? Because it's very strong. It's very good. Works well. The gonads of the pig would be very powerful, and the ears. The ears are related to the kidneys, right? So if you have like hearing problems or anything, it's like a kidney issue usually. So in the pig's ears is a lot of like yin kidney-ish kind of energy. So if you have any kind of issues with like the kidneys or even the gonads or like the bladder and all this kind of stuff, you could probably get pig's ears and like boil them, and you could like drink the liquid, or you could eat the pig's ears. However, you could grind it up into powder and take it as like pills every day, like before you sleep, right? So it's like a part of the body that has got lots of nutrients in it. If you work with animal parts medicinally or alchemically or whatever, it's good to understand what is the major elements and archetypes and such of that specific animal. Now another, because they had the trachea. I'm pretty sure the trachea is like the throat area. Here, trachea. Yeah, trachea is kind of like the tube which carries the air from like the throat to the lungs. Interesting. They had a cow trachea, which was, it's kind of disgusting, but it was there. And there's like pig's ears, and there's goat horns. The goat and also the deer. Yeah, the horn of the deer is like an aphrodisiac. They say that the deer is like it's got a lot of energy, let's just say. It's got a lot of that kind of energy in it, right? So there's like, they sell the horn, call it a deer velvet. It's like sold as an aphrodisiac, yeah. They had a lot of kangaroo parts, actually, because it's Australia, right? And kangaroo meat, it's very tough, very lean, very red, like ruby red, and it smells like shit. Like it smells like, like crap, right? It's not a pleasant smell. It doesn't taste that bad. It tastes all right, like a lean beef, something like that, right? With a bit of like a heavy kind of crap taste to it almost. Everything in Australia, it's like all the plants smell like crap, or they're super bitter, and all like the animals, it all has this like crap smell. It's just everything is just crap. It's because it's a super southern country, so archetypally the country relates to crap, the bowels, etc. That's what's like a mining and farming country, right? You think, but they had the tailbone piece of the kangaroo's tail, like the base of it, and that's probably full of like root energy. So if you bought a bunch of these, this is for another alchemical extraction video, I'll get that and I'll play around with it. But they had that, which you'd think like the kangaroo, okay, is it a very root animal? Well, maybe because it smells like the meat smells like crap. Maybe, yeah, it is like a very root-ish animal. And they also had the knee, I think the knee cartilage, very disgusting sounding. But again, the knee is like, it relates to Capricorn, right? It's like the root. It's another form of the root. How do they specifically know to get these parts? It's like these people are masters in archetypal science and such, and it's probably just that I don't know, the mundane world somehow accidentally figures out what the occultists come to understand, and I guess the occultists study the mundane world to then understand these things and make it a cult and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, these parts have tons of nutrients, and they're giving them to like, I guess, dogs. I don't know if there was anything for cats, but it's all these weird parts of animals. like knuckles and just horns and like things that you'd be like, what? What is that? Like ears, like of a pig, what? But these are parts that are full of nutrients, full of like, I guess like amino acids and salts and I don't know, like stuff that is just full of energy, right? Just like if you turned it into like a medicine, it would just vitalize someone. And it's the kind of joke is that it's hiding in the pet food section. So next time you go to a supermarket or wherever that has like a pet section, go and check out like the weird off-cut, like preserved pet snack section, right? Things for them to chew on, and like even bones to an extent. Your bones full of nutrients, right? If you know how to extract them properly, check these places out and just see what you can find. And if you're looking for like alchemical stuff, because at the end of the day, this stuff it should be fine, right? You would assume, as I was saying with the start, it's like they always say not fit for human consumption. I'm thinking like, why? Is it just because they don't want us to buy really cheap food or something, or is it that I don't know, they don't process it in a way that's like clean enough, or it's raw, maybe it's not cooked. I don't know, but I think there's probably I'm not gonna. I swear I'm not gonna do it. I thought of like trying to psyop health influencers because eventually some health influencer is going to come along and try it out and like figure out there's all kinds of crazy funny weird diets that are in like on the X scene of like esoteric health food influencers, and I figured they'd totally buy it up and because I mean there is valid, like it would probably work, with all the amino acids they seemingly pack into this food. But anyway, I think I'm just going on about nothing now. Yeah, go check it out, and if you need like alchemical animal supplies to make stuff out of, there you go. It's in the pet food section. Okay, so I want to try to paint a picture of the idea of kind of mental energy, which I think is what is called dopamine. I guess if we're going to go into this, I'll hypothesize a bit. All right, so I think you've got your dopamine, which is your happiness, and then I think the serotonin is like the stabilizer, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understand correctly, people who take things like anti-anxiety drugs to pretty much level them out and like ground them out, right? It's like was it serotonin reuptake inhibitor? I think it's kind of stops dopamine a bit and it like it makes it so we'll just say this technically is not true because there's like complex biochemistry, but pretty much let's just say you're enhancing the serotonin, or technically they keep it in the system like a water circulator, it's circulating it or something, right? So we can think of these as like two opposites, right? If people take anti-anxieties, drugs, they kind of lose that like sweetness of life. They lose the happiness. They lose like sex drive as well, and creativity and like passion, all these kinds of things, which I think is in dopamine. But the thing is, we don't want an excess of like any of these, but it also depends on your life because okay, you can think of dopamine as mind energy. It's like energy within the mind. Like it's like this. It's like a high, right? It's an energy high. Like you drink a bunch of sugar, you get that high. You smoke a cigarette, it's like whoosh. You go really fast. It's that like that adrenaline rush kind of high. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's adrenaline as well. But like, let's just try to keep it like simple, right? And then the serotonin, we'll say, is more like a physical stabilizing. It's a Saturnian grounding energy. So the dopamine is like the sun. It's like positive solar, and the serotonin is like Saturn. It's negative. It's like grounding, right? So as you're younger, you've got more dopamine, and then it kind of turns into the grounding energy of serotonin, yeah. And artists traditionally, unless they're very grounded and stabilized, maybe dealing with like modeling and such, are more like, dopamine heavy. So that's what allows for a lot of creativity. You know that when you like, I don't know if you've ever talked to or seen like an artist who's like really really out there, really really like just almost like they're kind of crazy, but they're stable enough, I guess, to get by, right? And that's the excess of dopamine, excess of like pleasure, almost of high energy. And a lot of the time these people are, drug addicts, sex addicts. They are, addicted to something that's getting them high all the time, because if they get off that, and sometimes they do have that personality, but usually when they get off the thing that's making them high, spicy food actually does this. It makes you kind of euphoric, almost, I guess you could say, at the expense of stability, right? This makes a person have the ability to be very spontaneous and creative. And it's not that you can't be an artist while being stable. If anything, actually, being stable, it's a nice, you can create really nice things, really stable feeling things, really grounded, very structured, like architecture, or like very atomically correct, depictions of things. So it's not like you can only be creative if you're just like boosting yourself all the time, because it's not good for your health, right? But that's how if you see someone that's in that like just absolutely like crazy domain of creativity, usually they're higher in that form of dopamine, and usually it's because they are using some kind of drug, right? The same way we have the opposite, which is now what I've found is that as I got older and had to become more stable, because I got to keep up a full-time job, I got to keep up a household and all this kind of stuff, right? I have to like be stable. I have to keep this shit going. Whether I'm like ill or whether I'm like not feeling like it, right? It's almost like naturally what happened is that I felt like I was under the effects of antidepressants, right? And I've never taken them, but I've seen what they do in people. I've seen how they just like draw the color out of people and they overly stabilize. So I think that it's almost like the body. Okay, so if you're in pain all the time, your body almost starts to produce like natural opiates to get you to be able to function. If you are in like a form where you need to be like stable, your body will start to produce the stuff you need, right? It's a bit like your weight will change. Usually the more stress you're under, the more stable you have to kind of become, the larger the body will be, right? While people who are in a more spiritual, high dopamine, high energy state are like thinner, right? Kind of smaller figured. So naturally your like brain chemistry will actually adjust, which means that if you can like it's kind of, to get it to tick over, it's almost like you have to be in that state of like misery or whatever that your body is adjusting to for like so long, until eventually it's just like, oh yeah, we need to be in this state, okay, let's do that. Depending, I think maybe some people could adjust quicker or whatever, I don't know. It took me a long time, I found, personally. I don't know why. Maybe it's kind of, it's an environmental problem. Like the environment here is kind of I don't know. But, going on. So yeah, you don't have to be on any kind of thing. It's like it will naturally happen. But a lot of people do, because they can't deal with the pressure, right? It's like a lot of people are self-medicating with alcohol or psychiatric drugs, or like stimulants and all this kind of stuff to get them to like forcefully go through their day, and it's not a good thing. It's not good for the people around them. It's not good for your job and all that stuff if you have to medicate. So long term, it's just not, it's not good. But essentially, I figured this out when, for the last month, like I hadn't driven a motorcycle, right, which I used to use for my work. Now I use a car because I bought one, right? And it was like instant dopamine. Like I actually had forgotten, because I hadn't driven it in so long. I did all my maintenance. I fixed it, made it nice and good mostly, right? And then I went out on the road and it was like, wow, this is so much fun. Like this is absolutely ecstatic. Like I was so high. I'm not even speeding or anything. Like I don't speed because I'm very moralistic, I guess, and I understand how dangerous the road can be. But it's just that instant acceleration, right? That just it's so fast. If you feel it, it's so different than being in a car. In a car, you can go, the fastest legal speed, and it doesn't even feel close to going like half the fastest legal speed on a bike. It's so different. The experience of it and the acceleration and just like, especially if you know how to ride a bike really well. I've kind of driven my bike enough that I can get it. I can just rev right below red line like near instantly. It's like it has a turbocharger or something. Just because if you rev it high, which you have to do that on like a smaller engine, right? Just to get by. On like a larger engine, you can kind of, it's like a car. People rev their cars a bit lower. So you don't really hear them all that much, but on a bike, you kind of want to rev it higher, especially if it's like a sports bike, right? So it's just like, it's so fun. Like it's so intense internally, like the hit, the rush of dopamine, and it's just that contrast of, because the whole month I've just been like working, just trying to survive, doing maintenance on everything, fixing things, just like being stuck in a routine, right? So it's like I haven't had any dopamine, I haven't had any like mental stimulation. I live a pretty mundane, structured, ordered life, just 'cause you kind of have to get by when you're like, like poor, I guess, right? But that just fucking, that rush of that, it's insane. And it's not like I'm not addicted to it. I honestly, I couldn't be bothered going out and driving again today or anything. I just can't be asked, right? Because I'm kind of old enough where I'm stuck in like, I have to be routine to do that stuff, but it was so intense, right? And that's the thing. That's when I figured out, it's like, oh yeah, this is like mental energy. This is like that bright head energy, and it is using your lower energy the same way that, I mean, it's the same thing if you smoke a cigarette, right? Like tobacco, what it does is that it draws the fertility energy, the bone energy, and all the lower energies, and it shoots it straight up to the head. That's what the Kundalini. That's what they're trying to do with Kundalini, is that they're tensing the lower areas and creating pressure, and then they're slowly tensing other bits in the body to push it up into the straight up to the brain. And like, it's just that euphoria, that ecstasy it opens up the brain, and it's like a room you haven't aired out for a while that's full of like junk. You open that, and I guess you could say spiritual abilities come from like opening up the head, right? So people who haven't, like imagine you give like MDMA or something to like a medieval peasant, right? Like, I mean, I guess they would drink a lot of alcohol, so they'd kind of be pretty euphoric, and the work probably gets you a bit high. But like, that's the thing, is like, these people didn't have their minds as awoken maybe as we do now, because of all the like the EMF radiation. It's constantly putting us in this like high mental state of like euphoria and like dopamine stimulation. With technology, with like just like electronic EMF frequency, it naturally stimulates our minds. If anything, we need the lower, stabler energy. You see a lot of people, especially older people, who look like, acting like teenagers or something, right? Like they need more stabilization energy. So that's a whole other thing. So, but in the past, like people were, you'd think, a lot more stable, assumably, right? Because they had to farm a lot more, and they had to like make all their own stuff, and everything was tied to the earth, and things were slower. The quicker transportation is, puts you in that higher state, right? The quicker everything becomes, we have to readjust, and it can be a lot of like strain on the body actually. So you have to, you have to be strong enough to handle it. Anyway, I don't know. It's just something to, now you can like analyze, are you in a state of like mental euphoria, or are you in a state of like stability? Or the more, serotonin dominant. Um, and depending on your lifestyle, if you're more of like you work a 9 to 5 job, you have a family, all that stuff, you have to be like serotonin dominant, right? That at that point. And otherwise, if you're like a traveling artist and you're just like, or entrepreneurial or whatever, it's like you're more of a dopamine. Like, well, I mean, I don't know. It depends on how much. If you work a lot as like an entrepreneur, but you'd have to have a lot of that serotonin as well. But you know what I mean. Like you can feel it in the body.
So I'm starting to wonder and think if part of getting good at things is getting used to them. That's why if you do something as your job, or you can do it like hours and hours of it, you will get really good at that thing, right? Assuming you don't burn out and like it's very exhausting. You have to kind of figure out a way to do it at like a low enough capacity or low enough like power point where you don't burn yourself out. You can still do it, but you just want to get used to things. It's a bit like if you're driving, right? And you drive in a place you've already been, you're used to it. So it's like subconsciously, you're kind of just filling in the blanks, even if it's like busy or whatever. You know where all the turns are, you know what the points to stop at, and eventually you're not even really, doing the action. Of course, you should be. If you're driving, you should be there and conscious and all that. But otherwise, the more you can make it autopilot, the more you learn, right? Or the easier things get. And you just want to get to the point where everything's pretty much autopilot, where you know everything that you can know, and you can pretty much do everything that you need to do. And you've done everything before. And the way that you do that is just by doing everything. It's just and you do everything by doing lots. So lots of working, work, and practice, and eventually you get good at, or you get good enough, which good enough is just, having had done something enough times that it becomes like subconscious, right? Whatever it is. And then when you go to study that thing and you read the materials on it or whatever, you're like, oh yeah, I remember all this stuff. This is all familiar. And you want that point where it's all familiar. Because then you can move to the next level. You can think it's like layers of a cake, like stacking pizzas on top of each other. You learn kind of every angle of the basic stuff, and then you go to the next thing. It's kind of like when you can't really understand something. The best thing to do is just to embrace not being able to understand it. Instead of getting frustrated and like tensing your head and just getting agitated, you try to relax. If you can get to the point where you don't get agitated anymore, where you're completely confused, you're completely just like, this is overwhelming. Okay, that's all right. Let's just ride with it. Let's just kind of work with this feeling of overwhelmment, right? If you can do that, and then you can just keep going, you will learn more, right? And again, if you just submerge yourself within being overwhelmed, if that's at the point, usually when you're newer, it's kind of funny because it's like the newer you are at things, the harder things are. And then as you get like more advanced, as you get better at it, things get easier and easier. It's so weird. I mean, I guess that's just how it has to work. It's like, I don't know. It's so strange, I think. It's like if anyone played the game Dark Souls, I think I died like 30 times in that game before I could beat the that first level with like the gargoyles, and you're on that on the rooftops and whatever, right? And then after that it became kind of easy, and then it became harder again, and then easier again, and harder again, and it goes up and down and up and down.
depending on the game, will depend on the difficulty curve. Life, I still haven't figured out the difficulty curve, but things seem to just get progressively easier. It's almost like at the start, it's like insano mode difficulty, and then you just like slowly get better from insano mode, right? Like it turns into like super really hard mode, and then it's like super hard mode, and it's like really hard mode, and then it's just like hard mode. I'll tell you if it gets easy. I don't. I hope. I hope, right? I think it does because certain people who are just very material, very physical, very grounded seem to have a much easier time, and they seem to get on just fine, right? There's like people who are more in their head, I guess, more like intellectual and electric. They struggle, depending, I think, probably maybe on the country. Anyway, tangent over. Main point is get familiar and just think of it as getting familiar with whatever field you're studying or practicing or thing you're doing, and the more you do, just but by living that, breathing it, eating it, it's and such, just by like, yeah, just living that life. That's why I say if you get a job in something, of course nowadays you can't just get a job in something. It doesn't work that way. But like back in the day, that's probably what people would do. They would get a job in like, I don't know, electrical engineering. It's like they'd be surrounded by it, right? And then they would just buy a book, and when they were home, they would study it while eating and like before they go to sleep, right? And it's just like they just live that life, and it becomes familiar, and they learn all the terms and the basic terms and the more complicated terms, and it's just that's life, right? Like that is their life now, and they get good at it quickly, right? So yeah, try that out.
Alright, so here's kind of a weird thought I just had. So if we like take away everything physical, right, behind it is feelings, which is energy. Okay? So when you're feeling something and you don't have a concrete idea as to what it is, you're just kind of feeling out the energy of the thing. So you might think, I mean, here's a kind of common example, right? It's like maybe you want something to do, you want to like play a game or watch a show or something or read a book, whatever. Um, like maybe you want to eat something, right? Like, and you don't have a concrete idea of the thing, or you don't have a title name yet. But if you like, you can kind of feel out things that would, so to speak, resonate with you, that would feel similar, or kind of, it's almost like there's this, I guess, like it's intuition. We have this thing within us which is allowing us to access the energy world of everything. I guess you could think food has an energy, and I don't even mean like a dish that's already there, like sitting on a table. It's got like heat radiating it. It's like more if we go to like the world of kami, or the world of like gods, or thought forms and such. It's like, I don't know, pasta has like an archetypal energy, right? And you could think like, oh, maybe I want to eat that. It's like maybe I want to drink. You're feeling out the archetypal energy, the thought form of a certain like flavor, like a orange juice or something. I don't know. And it's kind of, you're feeling out whether you like that or not. Yeah, I don't know. Just think on that. Like you can do it with anything, with colors. You can be like, what color am I interested in? And then you just kind of like feel it out, and then you try to put more concreteness. You think like, is it this type of color? Is it a darker color, a lighter color? Is it like in the red spectrum or the blues? Does it have some gray to it, right? So you're narrowing it down with words, but you're accessing something which is within the immaterial archetypal world. It's like the world's library almost of concepts that has not manifested yet, or the thing behind things, but not
real things. This is like imaginary things, so to speak. But you can use it practically. You can use it to like direct yourself. Maybe you want to think like what town should I move to, or city or something, right? And you try to feel it out, like what area does your soul take you to, right?
So I've kind of been thinking about this idea, and I keep getting like these psychic images in my mind about it actually, of medicine and health. Now, I'm kind of the opinion that like medicine and health isn't this super complicated, like esoteric, like high art that it seems to be held in as, in modern day, right? Like surgery is literally butchery. It's like the way you chop up wood and like you saw it up and you drill it together, right? Like it's that, but with human bodies, or fabric. Where you chop up fabric and you sew it together. You're basically doing that, but with like muscle and skin and fat and bone and all this kind of stuff, right? Not to say it's not a difficult thing, and surgeries can last ages and all this, but what I'm saying, it's a practical skill, right? The same way, because you've got like internal medicine, which is pills, and external, which is surgery. And the internal one is pretty much a doctor just saying like trying to diagnose you and say here's pills to answer your problem, and that's like to an extent that's part of medicine. Then there's like emergency care and etc. etc. But the point is, if you look at I guess specifically Eastern medicine, right, Asian medicine, a lot of it is massage and exercise, and then you got like acupuncture and pressure and all that. And one thing that they're always working on, as I said, I keep getting like these psychic images about, is the channels of the body, right? Essentially, if the chi is flowing well in the body, then you don't have illness, right? Of course, there's a lot of things, especially in the modern age, that make us sick. So it's a little more complicated than that. EMF, bad air, bad people, bad food, bad water. It's like, it's tons of things. But in general, at least, if the energy is flowing through the body nicely, and we can think the energy is like electromagnetism, right? And that kind of opens up and directs the blood. And when they use the word chi, sometimes in the yin form, the yin chi, I believe, is the blood, and the yang chi is like the spirit, the hot air, the pressure in the blood. Something like that, right? Sometimes they use the word chi for like just pure energy. It's a little, you got to kind of get it by the context, right? But really, it's like, as long as your blood is flowing properly and the blood is healthy, like it's not too thin or too thick or too hot or too cold or too, this or that, right? You can essentially, again, this isn't medical advice. I have to preface that. It's ridiculous. I have to even say that. It shows you how messed up things are. But the point is, like, you can pretty much heal things, right? Within reason. I'm not going to tell you that you can like regrow an arm. I think it's possible. It's just you're probably going to have to use a lot of like, I don't know, we're going to have to find a way to like heavily increase metabolic energy, and tons of, there's a couple of things to work on. But you just say you got like a problem, you got like a sore knee or something, and you focus on the knees, or you stimulate them, or you massage them, or you do an exercise or something, you get the blood flowing to the knee, right? You get the energy flowing, you get the blood flowing, and you get the physical, the matter, the flesh and bone start being like stimulated, right? That generally helps and heals most things within reason, which is pretty good. Most people's issues can probably be fixed this way, even if it's an emotional or mental issue. At the end of the day, the emotions are still organs. The mental is still the mind, which relates to the body. And even, you can get better blood flow to the brain, and you can heal brain inflammation, and which causes all kinds of things like autism and
memory disorders and thought and brain fog and all this kind of stuff, right? So of course, once you start working with this idea of just getting blood flow and energy flow and heat and proper like balancing of heat and moisture, which is a little more complicated, sure, but once you start working on just really simple things, which is as simple as like massaging the areas leading in the body to that area that might be blocked. If you look at the body, you can see what's wrong usually. Um, and you're massaging, and if you think of acupuncture, if you've ever done acupuncture, it feels straight up like electrostatic energy. The needles seem to open up and stimulate I would imagine, the nervous system, or the parts of the body that work with energy, because it's not just the nerves, it's also, I imagine, they say like the fascia. I imagine the fascia is able to be electromagnetically stimulated. The muscles, if you zap muscles, they're like electromagnetically active. It's full of water and all this stuff, right? So essentially, it allows the electromagnetic or the energetic parts of the body to stimulate and to open, and you'll feel that, right? And it'll open the channel. So if someone has an issue somewhere, you open up those channels to that that problemed area with needles, right? Now, of course, it's probably nicer not to use needles. I mean, they're not too bad, but there's nothing wrong with acupressure, putting pressure on the points, or massaging the points, or massaging the channels again. And then, of course, if you understand analogy, different muscles relate to different organs relate to different other things, and everything kind of relates in a way. That's how you can press points and do certain things, right? But keeping it simple, and you might think, well, if you have a chronic issue, like you have really weak legs, let's say, stimulating your legs and getting some blood into them is not going to fix that issue, right? But day after day after day, it will help. It'll get them better, right? And then we go into something like exercise. You got to learn to strengthen different parts. It's like the chest is the heart meridian, right? Bench press, push-ups, and the legs is related to the bladder, squats and deadlifts and such, right? These all seem to help those areas. So there's different exercises and which will help to strengthen. So you get blood into the area and you get that circulation open, and then you exercise it. This is pretty much like the basics of self-care and I guess natural medicine and massage and exercise, pretty much, right? Pretty simple. And of course, herbs and minerals and animal parts and such, supplements and tinctures and all this stuff is good for different organs and such, and organs relate to the body and all this stuff. Like recently, I was having a lot of chronic fatigue, so I made up a mix of like kidney herbs. I was working way too much. I'm still working way too much, to be honest. But I took those for about, I don't know, 4 days or something. I don't like to take things for too long because I get used to it, and then when I don't take it, I don't feel so good. So it's like I don't like to do it for too long. I probably should have done it for longer, to be honest, but it did really help me. My back, it felt like I had a hole burnt into it. Still a little, because I stopped taking things, it starts getting a little worse again. But I don't know, maybe I'll have to. Well, I usually like if the weekend is there. I try not to take things during the work week, because like if I take something that makes me feel a bit weird, yeah, gotta be careful on that. One other thing is if you take things at night before you sleep, usually it helps you to heal. So that's actually a better way than during the day, I think. Unless if you take something during the day, it kind of will affect you during the day. So just say you need to stimulate something during the day, you can do that. But anyway, point being is that you can use these internal medicines as well. We're not just talking about external. And natural medicines will help you. My herbs, which for the kidneys was like, what is it, like Romania, Hisho, Dongguai, licorice root, a couple other things like stamina herbs. Anything stamina is kidneys, right? You can tonify the water organs as well, but you have to kind of balance the yin yang. So you can put some cinnamon if it's too cold, and if it's too hot, you put like licorice root. So, going on, this did help, right? And this is actually like I can see every day that I take this, I wake up, I feel better. I wake up in the morning and I actually feel good, right? Instead of feeling like, ugh, I don't want to wake up, right? Like I was actually waking up earlier, like an hour earlier, because of just, it's just helping me to deal with the stress so much better, right? And I can feel that it is actually healing me. And again, that's a big, you're not allowed to use that word. You're not allowed to say that it's healing you. Because if I went to a doctor and I said, hey, my back feels like uh, it's not so good. I'm working too much and I can't stop working because I have to keep doing shit. How do you help me? And they're going to say like, how's your diet? How's your sleep? And that's fine. That is, of course, optimize these things. And they'll ask you all these other questions. Do you smoke? Do you screw? Etc. That's what they ask. I don't know, my country at least. And eventually it'll be like, maybe depending on the doctor, that they might prescribe an exercise, or they might nitpick your diet a bit and tell you to stick to like a modern diet, which doesn't really work all that well. And then when they obviously don't know what's wrong, or they can't figure it out, they might prescribe you some pills or some other, probably nonsense. If you're older, they might give you like surgery if it's like a pretty bad problem, or could even like, direct you to get some kind of like a test, like a scan or something to check your body and all this kind of stuff, right? But at the end of the day, the pills do not fix it. The surgery temporarily fixes it, but it doesn't fix the root problem, which is causing the issues. I know I heard this nice thing. It's kind of like fixing like a leak in the roof, but you're not fixing the. Oh well, I guess I don't know. Maybe what's another one? You're I don't know. It's kind of like just patching up a house, right? But you're not fixing the root cause. Maybe if there's like water hanging somewhere, you're not getting rid of the water. You're just kind of patching things up so it doesn't like, so an area isn't rotten anymore. But it'll become rotten later on, right? Same thing with one thing you got to realize with like pharmaceuticals, which is why I'm really against them unless you have to use them. But I don't think they should be used by like, I mean, they're used by like, what's it, like 50, 60% of people now? It's crazy. I don't even know. It's like every woman is on them. It's so bad. And you can tell, you can literally tell when like they're on pharmaceuticals. It's so bad. One thing you got to think is that it's burning up your like minerals and certain essences of organs and such. Like it's not free to take a pill. It's not free to take one of these medicines because they need to use your energy. They need to use the things in your body to get the effect, right? You're stimulating something. It's like if you're taking like a like using a stimulant, right? Like caffeine, you're burning up, you're basically overtaxing the kidneys and the adrenals to produce more of adrenaline, more kidney essence. That's why it makes you piss. It's producing kidney essence, it's stimulating. That's why you warm up, and that's why you feel a bit better until you piss, and then you don't, you kind of lose your high, right? That's what happens on most things. But essentially, you're not getting this energy from nothing. Like maybe if you take it with food or you take it with like sugar or something, you'll get a little bit, but it's using up, I would assume, minerals in the body. So a lot of people, that's why I get this feeling from a lot of people who take this kind of stuff that they're they don't feel nice to be around, is the best way to put it. Even if they're like docile or whatever from like the medicines, they don't feel good. They feel like something's wrong, like an energy vampire, or like a, usually you can see them, they lack development. So this is a thing. It's like I heard a good thing where it's like drugs essentially, and I'm talking like alcohol, like even cigarettes, like it could be anything. It could be gambling or pornography. It can be all kinds of things can become addictions, right? These people use them instead of developing emotional control and emotional regulation, right? So essentially, they say when you take when you first take this thing is when you emotionally are stuck in, right? So some people start drinking at 14 and they don't move on emotionally from 14. Now, of course, they kind of have to and do to an extent, but it's a slower development. Maybe they're in their 40s and they only have the emotions of like the emotional development of like a 16, 17, even like 18-year-old, right? So it's really not very good. Or even like a young 20-year-old, right? um, they're emotionally stunted and to an extent mentally stunted. Again, a lot of these things deprive the brain and such. So what I'm saying is like this isn't free. Like medicine isn't, or pharmaceutical medicine isn't free. That's why if you have to take it, I recommend eat nutritious food if you can get it. There is some stuff that's cheaper, brown grains instead of white grains, for example. Things that are like taste kind of rich and almost bitter if you can like taste, you can eat them, right? Things that are like organs are a bit. I've been having some trouble with organs. I seem to get sick whenever I eat them. I don't know if it's the animals are sick and it's just the organs are no good, but like in the last year or two, because I used to eat them like every month or so, I'd get some organs just because I needed it, just like for my vitality, right? I still need it now, but I can't get sick, so I can't eat them anymore. Same thing with surgery, of course, that costs you money. That's a real big problem, is that it costs you so much money when, I don't know, like to me, instead of paying like tens of thousands in a surgery, couldn't you just like take a couple weeks off work and like, because that would probably help and heal you, and then you just like take some natural medicines and do some like different exercises and like really take it easy or something. I don't know, you could like heal yourself to an extent, to get yourself to a good point in like a couple weeks, and you would save more money than you would spend, right? So when people get shit cut out like gallbladder and appendix, it's just really just, we look at the past, the what do you call it, hairdresser butchers, right, cutting off legs and such, and we think we're so, or leeches, and we think we're so far. And it's like I look at some of those things like there's some logic to it. A leech getting rid of the bad blood. It's like I get it. Probably did help people. It's probably better things you could do, like massaging different areas, and I don't know, energetic medicine even, but we're not that far removed from that. Of course, we are and we aren't. There are some pretty advanced things, but it's just like, look, I think a doctor should heal you with their presence. If you are in the room with the doctor and they heal you with their presence, you just start feeling better. The doctor should emit healing energy. And I don't think a lot of doctors do because they don't practice internal energy arts and such. But the Eastern energy doctor, right? Well, the Eastern energy arts, the doctor who practices that should emit healing energies. Just being with them will start to heal you because they will almost take on, they will take on the problems and they will heal and such, right? So anyway, look, point being is that imagine the circulation of the body, right? The channels, the circulation, the blood vessels and nerves. Get that open, and you get the blood flowing, you get the energy flowing to the weak areas. It's weak, frail. It's like a little plant with like a crispy little brown dry branch, and then it's like the moisture's boom. It's like it plumps up and it greens up and it's growing leaves again, and it's nice and healthy and happy. And it's like, that's what you do. You keep it there enough, and eventually you strengthen it over time and over time, and yeah.